All right. Good morning and good afternoon, good evening, and welcome again to another opportunity here as we gather together around the Course in Miracles workbook lessons. And today we're going to review lessons 95 and 96. And this is workbook lesson 113. Again, we are in our third review period. And during this review period, we're going to be reviewing two of the previous lessons each day. And today we move up the ladder of awareness, up the ladder of consciousness, expanding our understanding and training our mind, retraining our mind, removing the blocks to the awareness of love presence. Being transformed by the renewing of our mind. All these things that we are doing by engaging in this journey of 365 days of looking into these lessons out of A Course in Miracles, which are solely designed to help us in mind training, thought reversal. And so my name is Oliver Blue, and I am delighted to be your temporary guide today. And I thank you for being here with me. And remember, as we go through this third period, the format that we're following is each morning and each afternoon, twice a day, we'll spend 5 minutes reviewing the two ideas for the day. And then all during the day, each hour, we will take the time to bring to remembrance these two ideas by just simply repeating the idea, meditating on the idea, what it means. These simple exercises have the ability to move you so far away from the dreams and the illusions and the hallucinations and the vain imaginings and the idle thoughts and the idle worship and the salvaged dreams and the foolish fantasies, strange imaginings, weird beliefs, delusions, and hallucinations that we have highly developed ourselves in. It's called separation. So we're moving from separation to oneness. And it's simply a shift in our perception. Shift comes about as a result of us embracing ideas that are in alignment with the reality of who we are as these innocent, whole, complete, eternal, changeless beings that we are, not separate from any other being, but one being, all one and the same. We all share this oneness. We all have this, we all operate from this one place of awareness or one place of consciousness. It's not multiple consciousness, there's not multiple awareness. There's not multiple people, there's not multiple minds, there's not multiple spirits, but there's just the one. And that one we call God. We say that God is present, always present. And there is really nothing outside of God, or there is nothing else. When we embrace this truth, and this truth becomes our point of view, or our it becomes our point of view, or when it becomes our what we call vision, our way of seeing and perceiving, then life becomes totally transformed before us. And we come to embrace all things as good. We come to understand that there's a perfection that we have joined with. And in this perfection, all things are reconciled into the one. As it was in the beginning, is now, and forever shall be. And no worries, man. No need to worry anymore. All things are well. All everything's been reconciled. All things have been put back into place. And just enjoy and be the expression of that, be the witness of that, be the what substance and the evidence, the substance of things that the world hopes for. It's the evidence of the things that are not seen. And that is the oneness that we share. And so moving into the exercises, moving into the ideas for today, if you remember back when we reviewed lesson 95, very important lesson. Let me go back and read a little bit of that while we are remembering. Lesson 95 says, I am one. I am one self. I am oneself. The connotation I am, which we've talked about many, many times, when we see that, that is the reminder that God has created himself, or God has created self, or God has created the one self by extending the one self. In other words, in true creation is extension. There is nothing that is made. To make something is to take something separate and apart from you and make something else. And creation is to take yourself and extend yourself. And what you extend is yourself. It is called creation. So there is only that which is extended remains constant. Okay, there is no outside, inside, upside, downside. It's only the one thing that duplicates itself. That is true creation. Because in true creation, that which is created contains everything that is in the creator, and everything in the creator is in its creation. That is true creation. The idea of making something is a separate concept of separation or duality. And the concept of duality or separation came from a split mind, a mind that seemingly split off from its original source and began to make things because it saw itself separate. And so it made things from a separate source. That whole idea is what created this world and formulated this world of duality and polarity. There were opposites. There's duality, there's opposite, there's always a subject and an object. That's the world we live in. It's the world of physicality. But this world is a temporary experience. It's not real. It's not eternal. It is not a God idea. It's an idea that can only be created or made up or experienced within an illusion or within dreams or within fantasies. Yes, that's the experience that we're having in that concept or that idea. Because it is not eternal. And that's why things change here on the dime. Change all the time. Well, in true reality, there are no changes. Everything is what's constant. There's only the one thing. There's only the one thing. It's love. And love is. There's attributes of love. Joy, peace, and happiness, and harmony. Yes. And that's the reality. That is the reality. That remains the same. It remains constant. It's not affected by any illusions. It's not affected by any activity or content of activity or event or sensation or perception or relationship. It remains absolutely the same. It's like the depth of the ocean remains the same. It's not affected by any storm. It's not affected by any wave that decides to come ashore. Why? The depth of the ocean knows that the wave will return to the ocean. Like the beams that extend from the sun, all the sun rays. The sun's not concerned about the rays. whether the rays are going to become these independent selves. No, the sun knows that it is the sun. Everything that comes from the sun, but doesn't leave the sun, ideally not their source. So the sun's not concerned that the ray may what split off and become something separate. No, in the process, these rays, these beams, eventually what they retract back into the sun. Because there's only the sun, there's only the one. So all these are just like metaphors to explain in the simplest terms that there is nothing but the one. There's only the one love. There's only the one life. There's only the one self. And we share that one self called the I am. So this first idea, I am one self, united. See, I am this one self united with my creator. As though, and it's not saying that the creator and the one self are something separate. What it's saying is that the creator and the one self is the one are one and the same. United, meaning they never to be divided. So the whole concept here is what God and God's creation. And God's creation is not different than himself. It's not divided from himself. It's not separate from himself. It is itself. There's a concept of what the source and what the source is able to extend. But what the source extends is itself. So if you get this, this is very metaphysical. I know it is. Jesus was very metaphysical. That's why he spoke the way he did. That's why he spoke in parable. That's why he spoke in things. He said things like, before Abraham, I was. See, he was speaking metaphorically. He was speaking outside of time and space, inside of time and space. He was in the world, but he was not of it. He was in the dream, but it was not of the dream. He was in this world of separation, but he was not of the world of separation. He understood. He came to become the light of the world. He became to wake the world up to the reality of its oneness. And through these teachings, through parables, and, his metaphysical approach to everything. He talked about heaven. He talked about the Father. He talked about creation. He talked about eternity. He talked about the Spirit. All this was a way to bring the then known world that was in the darkness, and it was definitely in a deep sleep, to wake them up. And so that was why, he was the odd man out, or he seemed to be a man from another world. He said, how can you know these things? I think Nicodemus said, no man can know these things unless they be sent of God. Because he understood the level of revelation that Jesus brought in his then known time was mystical. Mystical. It was expansive, and it challenged man to raise his level of awareness, raise his level of understanding. It challenged man to come higher in his thinking. And, so here in 2022, that same opportunity is available to us. And I think one way that it's available to us is through some of these very advanced teachings that have come through channeling, that has come through to humanity through revelation, meaning directly from God. And as this work called A Course in Miracles, it's a book that was channeled to one individual. And as she heard the lesson, the voice, she was just a dictator. And she would just describe, and she wrote what was being shared from that place of mystery. And thus we have A Course in Miracles. She doesn't claim any of this information as her own. Any of these thoughts are her own. And before she left here, it was her idea that this is A Course in Miracles, and Jesus' course. Jesus' way of getting us more information about ourself, our psychological, physical, mental self, and to help us identify what the problem and what the solution is. And thus, this course has been great help to millions of people these 25, 30 years, 1977, when it was created, and when it was penned and published. Been here. It's a great help, and I'm glad for it, happy for it. So I am one self united with my Creator. So this is really a statement of non-duality. And when we say non-duality, duality basically means two, a subject and generally a subject and an object. You know, uh, but this statement here, this lesson is I am one. There is no duality. There's no duality in oneness. I am one self. I am one being. I am one entity. I am one self, united with my Creator. So this is the statement that we need to embrace about ourselves, because this is the truth about our identity. We are one self, united with our Creator, not separate from our Creator, but united in one. That's why Jesus could make the statement that I and my Father are one. That's the same statement here, written in a different form. I am one self, united with my Creator. He made that statement about himself. We can make this statement about ourselves. The same self. The self that Jesus is no different than us. We're not talking about the body identification. It's quite obvious that there's billions and billions of bodies that look different. No two are the same. But all of them are of the same nature, which they are a temporary form within time. We're not denying that, but what we are embracing is a reality that is not who we are. That is not what we are. Physical bodies, but what we are is what God is. And what God is a timeless, formless being. One being that is the creator of all, or the source of all being, of the one being. God is the one self. And we share in that one self with our Creator. That's all it's saying. That's all it's saying. So when we focus our attention and our consciousness on that reality, we come to embrace it as our own. We wake up to that reality. What happens is that affects everything. The way we think, see, it turns our whole life around from the idea of duality, from the idea of separation, to the reality of oneness. And so now we see from that point of view, we see from that perception, we see from that vision. It's called Christ's vision. In many traditional terms, it's called the mind of God or the mind of Christ. It's the mind that Christ, that Paul said, that let this mind be in you that was also in Christ, that thought it not robbery to be equal with God or have equality with God. And that's what oneness means. A unity means that there's equality. And we have equality with God. You and me. We are equal with the divine. We're equal with our Creator. We're equal with the source of all things. And that is an amazing reality. That we as humans have a problem. We have a big problem, a big resistance to that, because it seems impossible. But it is not only possible, but it is the truth. You have equality with Creator. You are one with Him. You are one self, united with your Creator. As we embrace this reality, as we embrace this reality, comes all that is within this reality. It's called inheritance. We inherit what God is. And what God is what God is everything. So we are everything. And within that everything includes the serenity. It includes the perfect peace that we all really seek, we all really desire. So perfect peace comes through knowing, through the knowledge of Him who, the one self. If you're a Bible scholar or reader, have any Bible knowledge, you notice that in the New Testament it says Paul uses this uh, over and over again. He, at the beginning of his writings, at the beginning of his letters, he uses this phrase over and over again: grace and peace be multiplied unto you through what? Through the knowledge. So grace and peace, serenity comes through knowledge of the knowing. That knowledge is not a head knowledge walking into a sin, but it comes through the knowing, the direct experience. And so the word itself are what twice removed from the truth. The direct experience is what we're after. The words become what point us to the truth. These lessons, these ideas just point us to the truth. It points us inward and not outward. I am is an inward idea. I am oneself is an inward point of view. It calls us to look within. And so Paul said, grace and peace be multiplied through the knowledge or through the knowing. The word knowledge means knowing. Through the knowledge of Him who, the one self. Paul said in several cases that I may know Him himself, the one united self with our Creator. That's what Paul talked about. There's a mystery, he said, the mystery that was held in time past has now been made manifest unto all the saints, which is what Christ in you or Christ as you. That God was in Christ reconciling all things back to Himself. Nothing missing, nothing broken. All things are the one thing. See, this is all metaphysical. But it is natural. When you wake up to your reality, metaphysics, spiritual awareness, consciousness, all this becomes quite natural, quite comfortable. But the mind that believes that it's separated, and the body that believes that it housed the mind that's separated. This kind of talking it doesn't like this kind of talking because it's not comfortable with this kind of talking because it can't unite with this. It can't unite with this. It can only bring itself to this truth. Bring the illusion to the truth and be consumed by the reality of the truth. That's really what's happening here. So serenity and perfect peace are mine in this oneself. So the peace that you're looking for and the serenity that you're looking for and the tranquility that you may be wanting to experience. It is in this knowing of this oneself. And all of us have so desire to have a life that we experience in complete harmony. Not this life that we've experienced where this is always this full of the body, full of the mind, full of the world, always a pulling, always this dichotomy at work, this duality at work, good and bad, love and hate, all of this opposite, all this, it only can happen in a world of dreams. And it's kind of a hellish environment, So the hell that does really one can experience is in this place of not knowing. That is what that is really, if you want to talk about hell, that's where it is. It is in what the maze of bringing understanding to all this. And so it says, serenity and perfect peace are mine because I am one self. Well, perfect. And so it says, serenity and perfect peace is a result of the oneself. Completely whole, complete and whole. Put it that way. Complete and whole. Holy. That's what holiness is. Holiness is that one self that is what complete and that is whole. Meaning nothing missing, nothing broken. So we could not be talking about the body self or the mind self. We have to be talking about this one self that we share with God. That where there's nothing missing and nothing broken. And so because I am one self, because we are the one self, because we are this one shared self that we share with God, complete and whole, at one with all creation and with God. So here is a statement of complete harmony. A statement of complete harmony. So this one self is a self of complete harmony. A shared being, a shared harmony, an aware being, a conscious being. That's what is our reality. That we are God in the sense that God is and there is nothing else. And God is awareness, and God is what? Consciousness, and there is nothing else. That's what makes us like God. That's why you are in the image and likeness of God. Because you are aware, because you have consciousness. It's just a matter of what are you aware of? Where is your focus? Where is your attention? When your attention is on the dream of separation, you are experiencing hell. When you focus your attention on reality, your oneness, oneself, there's serenity, tranquility, and peace. It's just that simple. It's not difficult. It's not as complicated as we have complicated things. It's really simple. We are merely as God is. That's what Jesus meant when he said, where I am, there you are also. Where is he? Or she, or it. And he's not talking about a person or body identification. He's talking about where we are as this one self, this one changeless self, as we learned from yesterday's lesson, that we are as God created us. We remain changeless. We can't change that one self. We cannot change the I am. No matter how hard we try, we cannot do it. It's impossible. So when we get tired of trying to make something out of nothing and just embrace everything that we are, the fight is over. The conflict is over. And serenity and peace and joy and happiness and tranquility is what you will experience. Just that simple. All right, we're going to move on to the next lesson. Next idea in Workbook Lesson 13 comes from Workbook Lesson 96. And if you can remember, salvation comes from my one self. That was Workbook Lesson 96. Salvation comes from my one self. Wow. So it says, salvation comes from my one self. So again, this is a continuation of lesson 95, where we said the one self is who we are. We have to come to grips with this one self. I am one self. I am one self, united with my creator in this one self. I honor it because of what I am and what he is, and who loves us both as one. I am one self, united with my creator, at one with every aspect of creation, and limitless in power and in peace. This is the result of what happens when we embrace this reality. Our own acknowledgement that we are this one self united with our Father, is a call to all the world to be at one with you. To everyone we meet, be sure that we give the promise of today's idea and tell them this, that we are the one self. So once we embrace that one self, within that embrace is what we call salvation. Salvation is merely it's an idea of just waking up. Salvation, an idea of what being enlightened is but a recognition of what we thought we were. We were not. It's a recognition. It's a recognition of what we are. And it's the most natural experience one can have, is to wake up to the reality of their true identity. It's called salvation. And salvation is a promise. It's a guarantee by God that what He created remains unchanged, and that which He made will come into the knowledge or the awareness of that which He made. In other words, He guarantees that all humanity will come home to its oneself, to the knowing of its oneself. All humanity will have a universal experience. God guarantees it. It's built into what He created. God wakes up. It's like God waking up Himself. God guaranteed that He will wake up. Because when you wake up, God wakes up. When God wakes up, you wake up. Because what? It's Himself. And the one self really never been destroyed. What we sleep was a tiny mad idea. So when we wake up from the tiny mad idea and recognize that the one self has not changed, it's still shining bright. It's like the ocean has not gone anywhere. When the waves go to shore and they come back to the depth of the ocean and realize that the ocean hasn't gone anywhere. When the sunbeam, when they retract back into the sun, they realize that the sun is still there. I think it's changed. See, that whole experience. So salvation comes from my one self. It comes from the knowing of the one self. When we know that, we come to know that, then we come to experience that. It says, although you are one self, you experience yourself as two, as both evil and good and evil, loving and hating, mind and body. This sense of being split into opposites induces feelings of acute and constant conflict, and leads to frantic attempts to reconcile the contradictory aspects of this self-perception. You have sought many such solutions, and none of them has worked. The opposites you see in you will never be compatible. But one exists, and only one exists. So this dichotomy, this warring and fighting that we experience as a human, Paul talked about it, that the things that he wanted to do, he couldn't. Or the things that he didn't want to do, he did. And he came to the conclusion that he was an old, wretched man. Why? Because he could not reconcile the two. And what we're seeing here is that he was right. It's impossible to reconcile because there is not two. There's only the one. There's one appearing to be real, but it's not. This self, this body identity, this separated self is trying to reconcile itself with perfection, and it cannot happen. Why? Because it doesn't exist. There's only the one self. And so this made self that we try to make, we try to reconcile with perfection, and it cannot happen. And the world has tried for millions and billions of years, only to be frustrated. Only to be frustrated. And so it says it's a constant conflict and a frantic attempt to reconcile what is unreconcilable. Reconciliation has taken place. God has reconciled everything back into the one self. All the dreams, all the fantasies, all the illusions, all of that has been consumed by the one self. And so as we have attempt to make a self to be perfect and reconcile it, it's impossible. It says, the fact that truth and illusions cannot be reconciled. When you wake up from a dream, when you go to bed at night, if you dream, and then if you wake up in the morning, you realize the dream that you was only dreaming, it wasn't real. You can't go out now into the world and try to reconcile that dream and that level of living that you are. You couldn't make that happen if you tried. You can't reconcile the two, because one is a fantasy, the other one is another level. So he says, the fact that truth and illusion cannot be reconciled, no matter how you try. What means you use and where you see the problem must be accepted if you would be saved. Until you have accepted this, you will attempt an endless list of goals you cannot reach, a senseless series of expenditures of time and effort, hopefulness and doubt, each one as futile as the one before, and failing as the next one surely will. It says problems that have no meaning cannot resolve within the framework they are set. Two selves now. Notice now, you're one self. You're trying to reconcile two selves. You're trying to reconcile the body and the mind. It says two selves in conflict cannot be resolved. And good and evil have no meeting place. Love and hate has no meeting place. Up and down, where does it meet? In and out. It says the self you made can never be your true self. The body, mind person that you made, that social security number person you made, cannot be your true self. It can never be your true self. It says the self that you made can never be your true self, nor can your true self be split into two. The one self can't be split. It says, and still be what it is and must forever be. The mind and the body cannot both exist. Notice now, make no attempt to reconcile the two, for one denies the other can be real. If you are physical, your mind is gone from your self-concept, for it has no place in which it could be really part of you. But if you are spirit, then the body must be meaningless to your reality. Let me keep reading here. Spirit makes use of mind as means to find its self-expression. For the mind, in its original purpose, was only to serve us, never to leave you. And then the mind, in an attempt to make a separate self, is where all the chaos started. And it came from one thought of separation. So it said the spirit, or the one self, okay, that's synonymous with the one self. Spirit makes use of the mind as means to find the self-expression. And the mind which serves the spirit is at peace and filled with joy when it's functioning in its function to serve our reality. The mind was never designed to lead us. It's what led us into darkness. The mind is a mechanism for self-expression based on reality. It said, and the mind which serves the spirit is at peace and filled with joy. Its power comes from the spirit. Its whole purpose comes from the spirit. But when the mind went off on its own, created its own purpose with no power, that's where the chaos started. It said, and it is fulfilling, and it says, the power comes from spirit, and it is fulfilling happily its function here. So when the mind is serving our one self and being the expression of that, it is happy, it is whole, it's harmonious, it is not in conflict. But when the mind that seemingly have gone off or gone astray and tried to make a self of his own. That's where the chaos began. It says, yet mind can also see itself divorced from spirit. See, where mind say, I'm going to run off, I'm divorced, I'm not in this relationship no more. And perceive itself within a body, it confuses with itself. It's the body identification. Without its function, then, without its original function, the mind, it has no peace, no happiness, is alien to all thoughts. This is what we experience in this dream of separation. This is what we experience. A mind that is functioning without peace and without happiness and is alien to its thoughts. Yet mind apart from spirit cannot think. It has denied its source of strength and sees itself as helpless, limited, and weak. Disassociated from its function now, it thinks it is alone and separate, attacked by armies, massed against itself, and hiding in the body's frail support. Now must it reconcile unlike with like. For this is what it think it is for. It says, waste no more time on this. Who can resolve the senseless conflict which a dream presents? What could the resolution mean in truth? What purpose could it serve? What is it for? Salvation cannot make illusions real, nor solve a problem that does not exist. Perhaps you hope it can, yet would you have God's plan for the release of his dear son brings pain to him, fail to set him free. Your one self retains its thoughts, and they remain within your mind and in the mind of God. Salvation is a thought you share with God because his voice accepted it for you and answered in your name that it was done. Thus salvation kept among the thought your true self holds dear and cherishes it for you. Salvation comes from this one self, through the Creator, who is the bridge between our mind and itself. Wait patiently and let the Creator speak to us about our one self and what our mind can do. Restore to itself, free it serves its will. And so, the whole idea here again is that what salvation comes from that one self. Anything outside of that is fantasies and illusions. Dream of separation, split, all the things that we experience in this human experience that is painful, that is a struggle. All of the suffering that we experience comes from the not knowing of this one self, of trying to make another self. We do this until we get what? Until we get to the point where we decide there must be a better way. When we get to the point like the prodigal son and say, well, I have come to myself and I am going back home. This can't work, and it ain't working. And so it says, from my one self, whose knowledge still remains within my mind. The knowing of myself remains in our mind. God placed it there. God placed the remembrance of ourself in our mind. It's there. And when you hear truth like what coming from these studies, these are pointers, reminders. That's why God said, we become the light of the world. Once we accept these realities for ourselves. We become the light. We become that pointer, that temporary guide to wake our other brothers and sisters up. It says, whose knowledge still remains within the mind. I see God's perfect plan. We begin to see that only God's plan for salvation really has any validity. That we see God's perfect plan for our salvation perfectly fulfilled. In other words, we get a revelation. We wake up. We come to know the truth. And that's the end of today's exercise, today's lesson 113. Thank you so much. It's been my pleasure. We'll see you on tomorrow with lesson 114. And remember, you are one self united with your creator. And in that union is your salvation, which comes from that one self. Just that simple. Have a great day. Thank you. Bye bye.